Hi, I'm Kim Coco. Today we're going to do a 30-minute yoga class for beginners, and this will be a relatively simple introductory class to help build some strength and flexibility in the body. So I recommend having a blanket or a beach towel or bath towel, something you've got lying around the house, and a yoga mat. So that being said, you can set your blanket aside or your towel aside, and I'd like you to go ahead and start on your back. And you can let the feet splay out. You can bend the knees and place the soles of the feet on the floor if your low back feels tight. Maybe relax the shoulder blades down the back. And then once you find your torso in a relatively comfortable position, go ahead and let your hands rest on your rib cage so your elbows rest by the sides. And without changing anything at first, lightly close your eyes and begin to notice the natural rhythm of your breath. Notice if you can breathe in and out through the nose for this part of your practice and throughout the next 30 minutes. And become the observer of how the breath moves in and out of your body without trying to change it in any way. And then begin to slowly deepen your breath as though you're going to inhale and allow the lungs to press the ribs out towards your hands. And every time you breathe out, maybe use your hands to help lightly press the rib cage towards your spine. So inhaling, filling up the breath, the lungs push out. Exhale through the nose, allowing the rib cage to draw in. So just a few more rounds. Letting everything else in the body be relaxed, but just allowing this first stretch of class to be with your breath. Let your hands rest by your sides and notice if you can feel the breath still moving out to the sides of the ribs, to all four sides of the rib cage as you breathe. And try to keep that breath moving in and out through the nose evenly throughout the next 30 minutes. And then the next time you inhale, stretch your arms up overhead, reach your legs long as though you're going to wake up all over again. And then as you exhale, bend your right knee in towards your chest and hold it there and pause for a moment. Feeling length in the left side of the front side of the left leg and the low back. As you inhale, reach that right leg long, stretch the arms back up overhead, and use your exhale, left knee in towards the chest. And again, you might want to roll around the ankle a little bit there. Otherwise, we're going to start to coordinate the movements of your body with your breath. So as you inhale, stretch the arms and the leg out long. As you exhale, hug the right knee in towards your chest. Inhaling, stretch long. Exhaling, knee in towards your chest. Inhaling long, extend the whole body. Exhale, right knee in. Inhale, extend. Exhale, draw it in. If it's too much with the leg extended, you could always bend the knees with the soles of the feet on the floor. Otherwise, keep the legs long. The next time you hug the left knee in, that will finish on that second side. Stretching all the way back out when you're done. And then taking both knees in towards your chest, hugging them in, maybe rocking a little side to side. Maybe rolling the ankles out in a few circles here just to get out any kinks. Wiggling out the toes. And then you can roll over to one side and press yourself up to a seat, or you can rock and roll your way up. From here, grab your blanket or your towel and fold it over twice. Sometimes sticky mats aren't always as cushiony as you might like them to be. So we want to make sure that you have some support underneath your knees. And so if that's the front of my mat, I'm going to actually be on hands and knees. So this tabletop position, very common in yoga. So you're going to take the hips over the knees, shoulders over the wrists. And then once you get here, spread the fingers wide, press down into the hands, and make sure your hands are about shoulder distance apart and knees are hip distance apart. So you have a nice solid foundation, just like you would want for your own table. So press the floor away with your arms, and then but lightly soften and spread the collarbone. We're going to take a few rounds of cat-cow, which is a common yoga pose. So we're going to inhale and start to drape the spine towards the floor as if you were sagging your spine towards the floor, squeezing the shoulder blades together towards the spine, and maybe look up. As you exhale, start to tuck the tailbone under, press the floor away, round the spine, and create space between your vertebra, and tuck the chin. So the hips stay exactly where they are in space over the knees, and you're just going to inhale and start to arch the spine, take a gentle back bend. Exhaling, press the floor away, tuck it round, creating a little forward fold for the spine. So inhale with your breath, gentle back bend. Exhale, tuck and round, like a cat that's taking a nice big stretch. One more time, inhale. Exhale. This time as you press the floor away, tuck and round to bring the hips all the way back towards the heels to Balasana, or child's pose. Nice resting pose anytime you move through class. So if you get tired, this is the place to be. You can let your forehead rest on the floor. You can take your arms back by your sides if that feels good. Otherwise, if your hands are by your hips, stretch them out long in front of you. Inhale, come back to tabletop position. This time your belly button is reaching towards the spine. You have a nice flat low back. And we're going to tuck the toes under. Press the floor away. Hug the hands in as if they were going to come in towards one another without necessarily moving them. That engages the front of the shoulder, and then broaden the collarbone. And we're going to tuck the toes under and then lift the knees up about 2 inches. So you're already going to feel your core engage and everything turn on. And then we're slowly going to keep the arms straight and strong and press the floor away and start to bring the hips back toward the heels. So you're going to keep the knees bent. You should still feel a little heat building. And then we're going to slowly start to come to downward facing dog. And you can bend the knees a lot or a little. And you might want to walk out the right heel, press the right heel to the floor and bend the left knee in. And then straighten out the left leg and bend the right knee in. Keep the arms straight and strong and pressing the floor away. Bend the left knee, straighten the right leg. Bend the right knee and straighten the left. So one more time, starting to open up the whole body with some heat. Pressing the floor away, letting your head and neck relax, and then taking both heels towards the floor. It doesn't matter if your legs go straight, especially if you have tight hamstrings, your knees will probably stay bent. Take another round of breath in and out through your nose. And then as you exhale, drop your knees back to the floor. You're going to come through table, tuck and round the spine, and rest your hips on your heels, child's pose. So again, forehead rests on the floor, arms relax, hands can go by the side. Notice any changes you feel in your body, any sensations. Notice how your breath has changed already, and is it easier or more challenging to still breathe in and out through your nose? As you inhale, take your hands back out in front of you. Come up to tabletop position. From here, we're going to come to a forearm plank to build some strength. So we're going to go ahead and come onto your forearms so your elbows are now underneath the shoulders and the forearms are parallel to one another. Notice here the belly button, instead of sagging into the back, can you allow the low back to lengthen and tuck the tailbone slightly as if you're going to engage your core. And then we're going to step that right foot back behind you and then step the left foot back behind you. And notice here the tendency is to want to round or bring the shoulders over way past the elbows, or bring them back in space. Even keep them up. Bring the heels together, the soles of the feet together, or the inner edges of the feet together to feel your core turn on. Broaden across the collarbone. Take another round of breath in and out through the nose. Feel your core engage for some strength. And then as you exhale, drop the knees to the floor, tuck and round, child's pose. So working a little bit of strength and flexibility in our practice today. As you inhale, come back to tabletop. It's our nice balanced pose. So again, we'll take one more round of cat-cow. As you inhale, let the spine sink towards the floor. Draw the shoulders away from the ears and maybe lift the chin. As you exhale, tuck and round the low back, the middle back, the upper back, and then tuck the chin, rounding the spine. As you inhale, come back to a flat back. We're going to come back to plank or forearm plank. So if you think forearm plank was challenging enough, then return and repeat that a second time. Otherwise, from here, keep the hands under the shoulders, press the floor away, broaden across the collarbones, draw your belly button towards your spine, step your right foot back, then step the left foot back, bring the inner edges of the feet together, feel the shoulders over the wrist, gaze out a foot or two in front of you. Feel your legs turn on, reach your heels back in space without necessarily moving in the body. Keep pressing the floor away, keep broadening the hearts, the collarbones. So you have a nice, straight, strong line of energy running through the whole body. And then when you're ready, drop the knees back through tabletop, tuck and round, child's pose. Again, let the head and neck relax. Notice how the heart is beating, how the breath is moving in and out through the body. Can you still breathe relatively evenly? Let the shoulders, the head, the neck, and the jaw relax. And then from here, walk your hands back out in front of you. So you're still in child's pose with the hips back towards the heels. We're going to inhale and lift the torso off of your legs a little bit. Walk your hands over to the right and then fold back down. So you're getting a nice stretch in the left side of the body. Feel your left hip move towards your left heel and then breathe into the left side of the ribs. Soften the jaw, soften the throat. As you inhale again, walk your hands back through center. Lift your torso off of your legs slightly. Walk your hands over to the left side of your mat. And keep the arms extended, but let the head and neck be heavy, and then let the right hip drop towards the right heel. So just getting a nice side stretch from child's pose. Again, with your breath in, slowly walk your hands back to center. Coming to tabletop once again, hands still underneath the shoulders. We're going to go for gate pose next. So with gate pose, if you do have a hard time staying with your hand on the floor, you might have a yoga block. You might have a really thick book or a stack 2 books, and that might be handy. So from there, we're going to set back up, tabletop position, hips over the knees, hands underneath the shoulders. And we're going to stretch that right foot back so it's nice and straight. And then we're going to spin the outer edge of the foot to the floor. And then we're going to swing that left shin back in space like a kickstand. And this is where your option comes in. You can place the block under your left hand so the shoulder is still over the wrist. Now you have a straight line from your left wrist to your left knee to your right foot. And then we can stretch that right arm up. So you can stay here, and hopefully you start to feel a stretch in the whole right side of the body, and you're literally pressing down through the outer edge of the right foot to give you an anchor point. And you're welcome to stay here, or you can turn your right palm towards the front of your mat and stretch up and over with that right arm. But if you get there and you find it hard to breathe, then by all means back off and reach the arm up. If you have an arm injury, you could rest the arm on your hip. But see if you can soften in. Feel the rib cage come in towards your spine. So instead of arching the back, you just want to be in a straight neutral position here with the spine. See if you can soften the jaw, soften the throat. Gaze down if you want some support, or if you want to challenge your balance, look out to the side or look up. The next time you inhale, reach that right arm towards the ceiling. Take the right hand back to the floor. Remove your block to the other side if you're using one. Tuck and round, child's pose. Observe what you've created just by moving your body. As you inhale, come back to tabletop, hands and knees. We're going to this time stretch the left foot back behind you, spin the outer edge of the left foot to the floor, swing that right foot back in space like a kickstand. Place a block if you need to under your right hand so your right wrist, right knee, and left foot all come in a straight line. And then from here, press down through the outer edge of that left foot. Maybe start to reach that left arm up towards the ceiling. And again, you can stay here and work on your balance by pressing down through the outer edge of that left foot. Imagine length in the whole left and right side of the body. You might turn your left palm towards the front of your yoga mat and reach it up overhead. But see if you can soften your throat, soften your eyes, whether you're looking down, out in front of you, maybe even up a little more towards the ceiling. And instead of shrugging this left shoulder towards the ear, can you create a little space between the shoulders and the ear? And then breathe into the left side of the body for 2 more rounds of breath. Through the nose, in and out slowly. When you're ready to inhale again, reach that left arm up. Slowly take the left hand back to the floor, come through tabletop, move your block aside. Tuck and round, child's pose. Take rest. Become the observer, noticing what you've created. When you're ready, walking your hands back in towards your knees. And then go ahead and make your way to stand. And you might want to move your blanket out of the way or your towel out of the way just for now. So from here, we're going to take Warrior 1. So we'll start there. Now imagine there's a line down the center of your sticky mat. And we'll start actually before we take Warrior, we'll take Tadasana pose. So look down at your feet, make sure all 10 toes are pointing forward. Your feet are hip distance apart. And just lightly imagine pressing the floor away, lifting the quadriceps up off the kneecaps so you engage the legs. And then instead of arching the spine, keep a nice neutral spine. And then take the hands and externally rotate them. So you're going to turn the palms out. It's going to broaden across the collarbone. So from the front, you internally rotate, the shoulder head moves in. You externally rotate, it broadens across the collarbone and gives you a nice spaciousness around the chest. So feet hip distance apart, palms facing the front of your mat, even though you're standing relatively at the back of your mat. So if you had an imaginary line down your mat, we're going to have both feet on either side of that line. And then we're going to take a slightly larger than walking step forward with the right foot. Spin the outer edge of the back foot to 45, 60 degrees. And then take your hands to your hips. We're actually going to turn that left hip towards the front of your mat. And what's going to happen is your back heel is going to want to come with you. Press down through the outer edge of that back foot and use it as your anchor. So spin the left hip forward. And then now both hips point towards the front of the room. And we're going to bend your right knee. So the right knee would point over that second toe on your right foot. And again, the tendency here is to want to back bend and lift and stick the ribs out front, but see the ribs that they draw in, and then feel the shoulders roll down and back, maybe even roll them down and back a few times. And then reach your arms out in front of you as though you were going to hold a beach ball between your hands, and then slightly move the shoulder blades back, or the shoulders back in space, and then reach the arms up towards the ceiling. So keep a nice bend in the front knee, keep pressing down through the outer edge of the back foot, getting a nice stretch of the psoas on the left side, the hip flexor. Take one more inhale here, maybe lift your gaze. As you exhale, slowly release your hands back by your side. Step that left foot forward to meet your right. Again, feet hip distance apart. We'll take a little bit of a balance here just for some fun. So step on that right foot, come to the ball mount of your left foot. You can stay here, or maybe start to lift the left foot off the floor and hug the left knee in towards the chest. So notice here, you can feel that left hip drop down so it's even with the right. Gaze in front of you. And if your shoulders are shrugging up by your ears, allow them to drop down. And find a point to gaze at as you press firmly into the mat with your right foot, but unscrunch your right toes and unclench your jaw. If you want to add a challenge today, maybe hold on with the right hand and maybe reach that left arm back. Maybe even follow that left hand with your gaze. But as you inhale, come back to the center. Slowly release both hand and left leg. Pause in Tadasana. Look down at your feet. Make sure all 10 toes are pointing forward. Collarbones broad. Your tailbone points down towards the floor. And your chin is parallel to the floor. So close your eyes and just notice a difference right to left. We'll take a little non-traditional approach. All we're going to do is do an about face on your mat. So now you're more towards the back of your mat. One foot on either side of that imaginary line. Press the feet into the floor. We're going to step that left foot forward a little bit larger than a walking step. Spin the outer edge of the right foot 45 to 60 degrees. Take your hands to your hips and square your hips to the front of the room. So both hip bones point to that other side of your mat, the other edge of your mat. And we're going to bend the left knee as though it was going to rest over the left ankle. So if you notice your knee is really far forward or really far back, you might adjust yourself if you have a mirror in front of you. So you turn the hips to the back of your mat, roll the shoulders back and down, and then take the arms out in front of you, but move the shoulders back. Keep pressing down through the outer edge of your right foot, and inhale, reach your arms up. Notice if the shoulders can drop away from the ears a little here, and notice that left knee is pointing over the left second toe. And use the outer edge of your right foot to press down into the mat to give you a stretch on your right thigh. And can you breathe a little more slowly through your nose? Take another inhale here. As you exhale, release your hands back by your side. Step the right foot up to meet the left. Again, glance down. All 10 toes point forward. Feet are hip distance apart. Stand strongly on your left leg and come to the ball mount of your right foot. Or maybe start to lift your right knee up. Maybe hold on to that right knee. But instead of leaning back to help, can you feel your spine fairly neutral? Can you find something to gaze at? Mental focus. In Sanskrit, it's called your drishti. Where's your gaze? You might even play around a little bit more and hold the right knee with the left hand and stretch the right arm back. Maybe start to turn your gaze and look over your right hand. As you inhale, come back to the center. Maybe release with a little bit more control. Coming to Tadasana, feet, you still face the front of your mat, but I'll just give you a different gaze. Standing, feet hip distance apart. Roll the shoulder blades back and down. Feel the collarbone broaden. And imagine the sides of the body getting longer. And imagine the breath. Maybe actually even take your hands back to your rib cage. And notice how the breath comes in and out of the body. Can you feel the breath expand out to your hands with every inhale? And draw back in with each exhale. You're standing still at the front of your mat. And when you're ready, release your hands by your side. Open your eyes if you had them closed, and then turn to face the long edge of your mat. And imagine that your heels and your toes line up in space, so you're not cattywampus on your mat. And then if you're going to take your arms out to the side, roughly my heels would be underneath my wrists. So again, if you have a mirror at home, this is really helpful. We're going to go to Warrior 2 now, and so the warrior poses build strength, but they also build some flexibility. And this time, instead of having your torso pointed forward, we have it in the side plane. Turn the right toes out. Keep your hips and your ribs and your shoulders facing that long edge of your mat. Glance down over your right toe, your second right toe, and imagine your right knee pointing over that toe. So the right hip's going to tuck under. Ideally, we're going to move this front thigh towards parallel to the floor, and then we're going to press down through the outer edge of the left foot. So you're starting to build a nice, strong foundation. The right knee points back in space from the inner thigh to the outer thigh, but then press down through the ball mount of that right big toe. And then you can stretch the arms out parallel to the floor, relax the shoulders down away from the ears if they've gotten up like earrings, but soften the shoulders down and maybe look over your right fingertips. And simply begin to notice your breath here. If you notice that you're leaning far forward, can you pull with the left hand just slightly back in space so your torso is upright and your tailbone points straight down to the floor? See if you can keep an evenness of your breath here. And then slowly straighten your front leg, lower your arms, turn all 10 toes back to the side of your mat. And ideally, they're not necessarily pointing straight ahead, they're pigeon-toed slightly. And when you're ready, turn and switch second side. Left toes point to the back of the mat, or whichever way you're facing. We're going to slowly press down through the outer edge of the right foot and bend your left knee. So again, as with Warrior 1, you want your front knee bent over the ankle. So to create a nice stack here. Feel your torso exactly upright. Press the inner edge of the thigh towards the outer edge, but then press down through the left ball mount of the big toe. And then stretch your arms out. Maybe gaze over your left fingertips, but feel that left hip tucking slightly under as your spine grows taller. And soften your gaze. Maybe even find a point between your fingers and the next object in front of you. And come back to an even deeper breath in and out through your nose and breathe down to the ribs, just like we did a few moments ago where your hands were actually on the rib cage. Although this time you're just using the mind's eye, your imagination, your connection to the body to send your breath there. Take 2 more slow rounds of breath. Keep pressing down to the outer edge of the back foot. Left knee towards the left side of your mat. Use your inhale to press back to stand. Slowly release. Turn all 10 toes back to the side of your mat. Walk or jump your feet back together. Turn to face the front of your mat again, whichever direction that is for you. And then again, glance down at your feet, coming to Tadasana, standing tall, tailbone points towards the floor, collarbone is broad. This time let's inhale and reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Maybe you look up at the hands. We're going to bend the knees a lot or a little depending on how tight your hamstrings feel, and take Uttanasana, a standing forward fold. So if the floor feels really far away, you have a couple different options. You can bend your knees generously, but let the head and neck hang. If you have blocks, you can place blocks underneath your hands. If you have a chair, you can let your forearms rest on the chair or your hands rest on the chair. But ideally, we're getting a nice stretch to the back of the hamstrings. So if your hamstrings are tight, bend the knees more. And if you want to start to work towards straight, then you start to press back through the legs and feel the sitting bones lift and spread. But wherever you are, feel more weight rocking to the front of your feet without scrunching up your toes. Let the shoulder blades slightly move away from your ears so they move up your back, since your head is towards the floor, or down your back but upwards towards the ceiling. Maybe even lightly shake your head no. Maybe lightly shake your head yes, making sure you're harboring no additional tension. And then bend the knees even more generously and slowly roll up one vertebrae at a time. Reaching your arms all the way up towards the ceiling when you get there, maybe looking up. Exhale, release the hands back by your side, Tadasana. Close your eyes again, check in with any new sensations that you're feeling. Even notice the sensations on the soles of your feet. Is there an evenness right to left, around the heel, to the ball mount, and a lightness even beneath your toes? And when you're ready, open your eyes again. And then from here, I'm going to have you come down, grab your towel, and ideally, you have a nice rectangle shape to start with. So if it's a really long beach towel or bath towel, you might fold it in half. And what we're going to do is we're going to start and create a nice big Tootsie Roll, is kind of like how I like to think about it. But it would be about maybe 4 inches in diameter and thickness. And I'm going to have you set it aside because I want to take one spinal twist before we come down to the floor. So make your roll so you have it handy. Place it off to the side of your mat. However, it's going to be comfortable. If you have a block or your book, it might be handy. You can also grab your towel, and if you only have that, that can be really helpful for your spinal twist. We're going to come onto your back, almost like we did for the first part of the practice. And we're going to hug both knees in towards your chest. And again, you might want to wiggle out the ankles or the toes, or rock the knees a little side to side once you're here. Otherwise, from this position, you're going to take the arms out at shoulder height with the palms up or down, your choice, but actually look side to side and make sure your hands are about shoulder height. Then drop the soles of the feet back to the floor. Shift your hips about 2 inches to the right. Bring your knees back in towards your chest, and then drop the knees over to the left. And now if the knees come all the way to the floor, but your right shoulder pops up off the floor, then go ahead and take a block or your blanket and stack it up underneath your knees. And it'll help drop the right shoulder down to the floor. You have a couple different options. You can turn your head to the left. You can allow your head to look straight up. Or you can look over your right shoulder. Just a little bit of a gentle spinal twist. And again, breathe into the right side of the rib cage, or just be aware of the space on the right side of the ribs. And then feel the shoulders drop down towards the floor. As you inhale next, bring your knees back to center. Place the feet on the floor. Readjust your spine so you feel like you're neutral. Maybe even look down and make sure your body's in a straight line. Then shift your hips 2 inches to the left. Hug your knees in towards your chest, and then drop your knees over to the right. Again, stacking up a block, blankets, pillows underneath the knees on that side so the left shoulder can drop down towards the floor. And then find a position that's comfortable for your gaze, looking over the right hand, up towards the ceiling, over the left shoulder. Maybe even take that left hand and slightly press the left hip away from the left side ribs to lengthen this whole the left side of the body. As you inhale, this time take your left hand over to your right. Press yourself back up to a seat. You can always hug both knees into your chest and rock and roll up. This time, to create a gentle passive back bend to lengthen the whole spine, we're going to go ahead and take your blanket, and we are going to place the roll so it's parallel to the short edge of your mat. And we're going to take the roll so it rests just behind the heart. So we're actually going to recline onto the roll, and we want the shoulders to be above the roll on the same side of the roll as the head and the neck. And then from here, we're going to take Savasana legs. So now if you were to look down, your body would be in a relatively straight line. If you want to bend the knees and let the knees drop together with the feet wide at the edges of your mat, that might feel more comfortable also. But see if you can look out, hands are about shoulder height again, or at least feel them there in space. And then without touching your rib cage, be aware of how the breath is moving down to the ribs, how with each inhale the lungs expand, and each exhale the lungs collapse. Noticing the backs of your legs heavy, the sensations at the soles of your feet. And evenness of your hips right to left as they rest on the mat. And notice where your back hits the blanket behind you or the towel behind you. And can you feel a sense of heaviness resting on your blanket? Notice the sensation as your skin touches the t-shirt on the front side of your torso. And notice where the back of your arms and the back of your forearms touch the ground, as well as the sensations and temperature at your fingertips. Imagine the back of your head was sinking down toward the mat and getting heavier. And instead of forcing the breath in and out of the body, can you notice how the breath comes in and out without any effort, without forcing it, while you're still breathing in and out through the nose? allowing the body to sink down towards the ground with ease. You rest the tongue in your mouth, at the base of your mouth. And imagine your closed eyes getting heavier in their sockets. You're welcome to stay here for the rest of your Savasana, which will be another few minutes on your back. So if you feel comfortable, by all means, stay. Otherwise, roll over to one side and as carefully as possible, move the blanket out of your way and rest on your back just like you did to start class, with your hands by your side. Legs extended. Tuning back into the mental part of your practice, in which you tune in to the internal sensations of your body, giving you clues about where you feel strength, when you need to rest. Trusting that this time here to let your body rest in corpse pose will allow your body to move inwardly and intelligently to bring your tissues back to balance. Knowing that it doesn't necessarily require a lot of effort to absorb these changes from your practice today. Can you keep your mind trained on your breath as though it's the most fascinating thing in the world? As the backside of the body gets heavier and the breath moves naturally. And just notice if you can keep your body completely still for this next minute without having to fidget or move. Being aware of when the sensations to move arise, and then letting your body sink back down to the mat. When you're ready, begin to wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. You take a nice long stretch like you did at the beginning of practice, like you're waking up all over again. Drawing the knees back and towards your chest one last time, maybe rocking a little bit side to side. Rolling over to one side and pressing your way to a seat. Or rocking yourself front to back, coming more upright. Pausing for a moment in a seated position, whether that's cross-legged or sitting on your heels. And then we end class with the hands at the heart. This is Anjali Mudra. Acknowledging the space of appreciation. And Namaste means the light in me honors the light in you, knowing that the joint contribution of teacher and student make this experience possible. So thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Namaste.